Funding for what I do is provided in part by my generous supporters on Patreon, and by direct donations from viewers like you. Thank you! Hey everyone, Kelvin here, and I'm pretty sure you heard the news, but Valve just announced this thing. This is the Steam Deck, and I think the code name for it originally was Steam Pal, which I kind of like that name, but I'm so glad that they didn't end up calling it the Neptune, because that was just such a dumb name. Like, it's too ambiguous. Too many things use the name Neptune. Neptune uses the name Neptune. Steam Deck, it makes a lot more sense, you know? But I'm really excited for this thing, because this isn't just like a device running Steam Big Picture mode perpetually. This is a full Linux desktop operating system on this thing. And if you attach it to a monitor, it will show you that desktop environment. You can type on it, you can develop right on this thing. I'm totally going to be developing right on this thing. And that's really exciting to me. It's a gaming tablet that I can just code on as well. So, yeah, expect to see Super Tux Advance on this thing, and Kyrodian Legends, and, well, any other games I make. Now I got a reason to put my games in the Steam store. I wasn't actually planning on selling my games, actually, but I put them on as free. So, what else is exciting about this thing? It's powerful enough to compete with the Switch, so you can get AAA games on it, and that's fantastic. Because what I really wanted was basically just something like the Switch, but open, you know? Something with enough power to play some high-end games or even run some emulators on, but not locked down the way the Switch is. And this one also comes with additional controls. It's got the trackpads, so, you know, if you're playing a game that uses a mouse, you can use those, so that's really good. That'll make aiming in first-person shooters a whole lot easier, because that's one reason why I never like playing first-person shooters with a controller, is because aiming with a thumbstick is really difficult and stiff. So with the trackpads there, I'm actually going to enjoy playing Half-Life with a controller, maybe. I still suck at Half-Life. But, yeah, so some of you might be wondering, since it runs Linux natively, how are Windows games going to work? Unless, of course, you're coming to me from the Linux side of my fan base, in which case you already know the answer, but to those of you not, SteamOS, Steam in general, uses something called Proton, which is a fork of Wine. Wine is a translation error. How did I do that? Translation layer. It is a translation layer, not a translation error. There are some errors, that's why not everything works perfectly on it. But what it does is it converts Windows API calls into Linux API calls. Basically, it intercepts them and says, oh, you want, like, say, DirectX? Well, here's OpenGL, hopefully doing the same thing. And that's basically how it works. So, Valve made their own fork of Wine called Proton, and they have been developing it heavily to run as many games as possible. And because it's still open source, the Wine project can, you know, take whatever they want from it and add it to the main line. So, that's awesome right there. So Valve has been contributing to getting a whole lot of software running on Linux, probably in preparation for this thing, and you can bet they're working even harder on that now. Because, you know, people buy this thing and then the game they want doesn't run on it, they're not going to be happy. So, of course, Valve has been putting a ton of effort into Proton, and they've also been working with the anti-cheat companies to get games working on Proton without, you know, being like, oh, you're cheating, how dare you run Linux, you're sick and wrong. And one thing I heard some people getting upset over is they think Valve is being aggressive by telling developers to not worry about native Linux ports, just focus on Proton. It's like, just use this for, use like Vulkan. It's a graphics library which is on both Windows and Linux, and that'll, make the translation a lot easier, since Proton won't have to worry about that. And so yeah, they're basically saying don't bother with making a native Linux build, just build your Windows applications and let Proton deal with it. And people are getting upset over this because they're like, oh no, that means less Linux builds, but there's a good reason behind that. And that is that it's not up to all the developers to independently support their software on two platforms. And there's also the issue of dependency hell, which I have to admit is a legitimate problem with Linux. Dependencies in the main repos get updated all the time, and if software isn't rebuilt to match those dependencies, it can stop working. And you definitely don't want that with games that people are paying for. So Valve's just like, hey, just use Proton, we'll handle it, we'll make sure everything stays working as best as we can, and if it doesn't work, we'll look into it, because, they're a big company, they got a lot riding on it, they've got a very good reason to look into it. So yeah, I'm not concerned about them telling developers to focus on Proton. I develop natively for Linux anyway, and I probably use an app image for my Linux binaries, just to make sure that they don't fall into dependency hell. So yeah, app image is pretty great. It's basically what you see in Windows already with DLLs in the install folder. It's like, don't worry about what the system has installed, use mine. And that's basically what an app image does. It takes a copy of all those libraries and packages it with the software. So that's what I would do. But if developers would rather just focus on Proton, I don't have a problem with that. That just makes their job easier and just, gives them more time to focus on actually making content for the games. So yeah, I'm wondering how well OBS will run on this thing, because I'd love to try recording gameplay on it. It doesn't look like it has a record button like PlayStation has. It looks like it's got 2 sandwich buttons, a meatball button, and a Steam button. I don't see a record button on the front. Hang on, wait for the view to go. Yeah, Steam button. I think that's a second sandwich button up on the left. I can't tell, it's kind of out of focus. Dang though, this is a sexy looking machine. It really is, it just looks so good. And it comes with 2 sandwiches and meatballs. I'm not gonna eat it, it's too expensive. I'm gonna play with it like it's supposed to be. Don't worry, my pike is not going to destroy this machine. Okay. So, yeah, Steam Deck. I've already got mine reserved, and I so cannot wait for the pre-orders to open so that I can pay mine off and get it as soon as possible, because this thing really does look like an awesome machine, and I'm super excited for it. I'm also super excited that I can use this thing as a desktop, and while I personally wouldn't do it, I think it is pretty cool that people have the option to install Windows on this thing, or even completely other distros of Linux, because the bootloader is unlocked. You can put whatever operating system you want on it, and that's really cool. Oh, also there's the dock. They have an official dock, but here's the thing, and they say this on the Steam Deck webpage. If you already have a USB-C powered dock, you can just use that. You don't have to use theirs, it's not locked down or anything, so that's another thing that I really love, that they're not locking this thing down. You can do what you want with it. I love that Valve understands that this is your device, you do what you want with it. That's so cool. So, yeah. I think that's all I've got to say on this. Thank you guys very much for watching. I will be talking more about the Steam Deck as more info is released, or if nothing new or interesting comes out between then and now, I will talk about it again when I get one, and let you know how it is. Maybe I'll do one of those Ashton-style reviews where I've got the thing sitting on the couch and you just see my hands holding it. I don't know, I think that would break the illusion. This cartoon puppet is totally great at selling the fact that I'm really a Shadewing, doesn't it? It's just great at that. But, yeah, I'll let you guys know how it goes, and thank you all so much for watching. I hope you'll join me next time. Didn't screw up the outro that time. Yay!